Part 1. The warnings ignored. The crystalline beacon spun silently in the void, its surface etched with symbols that predated most known civilizations. It was the seventh such artifact discovered by the Kethmoran Empire's expansion fleet, each one broadcasting the same haunting message across subspace frequencies that had been dead for millennia. Warlord Vextar stood before the holographic display aboard his flagship, the Crimson Dominion, his four-armed frame draped in ceremonial war silk that marked his rank as Supreme Commander of the Outer Rim Conquest Division. His species, the Kethmoran, had ruled through strength for over 3,000 years, building an empire that spanned 47 star systems through calculated brutality and overwhelming firepower. Another relic from the dead past, he growled, his voice carrying the distinctive harmonic undertones of his people. How many does this make, Navigator Hexrus? The pale-skinned Kethmoran at the navigation console consulted his readings, his third eye flickering with bioluminescent data patterns. 7 beacons, Warlord. All identical in construction, all broadcasting on the same ancient frequencies. Our linguist believes she's close to a complete translation. Vextar's predatory smile revealed rows of crystalline teeth. Summon, Chief, linguist Xeronix. Let us hear what these ghosts have to say. The linguist arrived within minutes, her arms laden with data tablets and translation matrices. Xeronix was young for her position, barely 2 centuries old, but her gift for dead languages had earned her a place aboard the Empire's most prestigious conquest vessel. Her nervousness was evident in the way her secondary arms fidgeted with her equipment. Warlord, she began, her voice carefully controlled. I've completed the primary translation. The beacons, their warnings, all of them. Warnings? Vextar's amusement was palpable. From whom? The Velthari, the Quendix Collective. Both civilizations fell to our fleets decades ago. Xeronix activated her holographic display, ancient symbols flowing across the air between them. No, my lord. These are far older. The linguistic markers suggest they were placed by at least 5 different species, all warning about the same threat. They speak of a system called Sol, and a species they refer to only as the Quiet Ones of Terra. The warlord's expression shifted to one of interest. Terra? I am unfamiliar with this designation. The warnings are extensive, Warlord. They speak of a race that chose isolation over conquest, that withdrew from galactic affairs despite possessing what the beacons describe as reality-shaping capabilities. Each beacon contains testimonials from civilizations that encountered these beings. The pattern is always the same. Initial aggression followed by complete annihilation. Chief Navigator Hexrus leaned forward, his 3 eyes focusing intently on the display. Define complete annihilation, linguist. Xeronix's hands trembled, slightly as she brought up additional data. According to the Zyftan beacon, their entire war fleet, over 2,000 vessels, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not scattered. The words they use translate roughly to unraveled from reality itself. The Mordek hegemony describes their homeworld being folded through dimensions until it existed nowhere. The Krexvani rite of time being unwound around their invasion force. Vextar laughed, the sound echoing through the bridge like breaking glass. Primitive mythologies and superstitions, these extinct races could not comprehend advanced technology, so they attributed it to magic and impossibility. Where is this Sol system? Coordinates placing it at grid reference Theta 779, approximately 43 light-years from our current position. It's listed in our survey data as a primitive system. Single yellow star, several rocky planets, minimal technological emissions. Minimal emissions. Vextar's interest sharpened. Show me. The bridge's main display shifted to show a 3-dimensional representation of the Sol system. A modest yellow star held several worlds in orbit, the third glowing blue-green with the telltale signs of abundant life. Scanning data scrolled alongside the image. Basic electromagnetic communications, primitive fusion technology, simple orbital installations. They've barely mastered their own star system, observed Weapons Master Kreldox, his scarred face twisted in contempt. Their energy signatures suggest early space age development. No significant military installations, no interstellar capability. Beyond basic probe launches, Vextar studied the data with predatory focus. The third planet, Terra, or Earth as their translation matrices suggested, showed abundant resources: water, metals, organic compounds, and a population of several billion potential workers. It was exactly the type of world the Empire sought. For its expansion protocols, the beacons lie, he declared finally. Or rather, they repeat the fantasies of weak civilizations seeking to explain their defeat by superior technology. We are Kethmoran. We have conquered species wielding antimatter and dimensional manipulation. What could a single primitive world possibly possess that could threaten the might of the Empire? Xeronix's secondary eyes dimmed with worry. Warlord, with respect, the consistency of the warnings across multiple extinct civilizations suggests that fear spreads like a plague among the weak. Vextar's voice carried the authority of absolute power. Navigator, set course for this Sol system. Signal the battle group that we advance to claim our newest conquest. At once, Warlord. Shall I request additional support fleets? For a primitive world that hasn't even achieved faster than light travel, the Crimson Dominion and her escort squadron will suffice. We shall make examples of these quiet ones to demonstrate what happens when ancient superstitions are confused for reality. The Kethmoran fleet of 12 vessels engaged their quantum drives, folding space around them as they leaped toward the Sol system. Behind them, the ancient beacons continued their lonely vigil, broadcasting warnings that had gone unheeded for millennia. As they traveled, Vextar reviewed the tactical data on their target. Earth's defenses appeared laughably inadequate. A few orbital platforms, primitive nuclear weapons, chemical rockets that barely qualified as spacecraft. Their military appeared fragmented among various nation-states, a weakness the Empire had exploited countless times before. What the scans couldn't show, were the massive installations hidden beneath Earth's oceans, the military bases, carved into lunar craters and shielded from detection, the defense platforms disguised as asteroids throughout the outer system. Humanity had learned long ago that advertising one's strength invited challenge. Better to appear weak and maintain the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. The Kethmoran fleet dropped out of quantum drive at the edge of the Sol system, their arrival detected immediately by sensor networks that had been watching and waiting for centuries. On Earth, in bunkers and command centers hidden from orbital surveillance, ancient protocols activated. The sleeping giants stirred, their patience finally exhausted. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the primary command center, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Colorado mountains. At 75, he was one of the few people alive who remembered the old wars, when humanity had been something very different than the peaceful species they pretended to be. Confirmed alien contact, Admiral, reported Colonel Diana Ross from her station. 12 vessels, largest approximately 4 kilometers in length. They're broadcasting on standard diplomatic frequencies. Put it through. The holographic display activated, showing a 4-armed creature whose face held nothing but arrogant contempt. When it spoke, the universal translator rendered its words in crisp, emotionless tones. Primitive inhabitants of Terra, I am Warlord Vextar of the Kethmoran Empire. You will surrender your world and submit to imperial rule. Those who comply will be allowed to serve as workers. Those who resist will be eliminated. You have 1 standard day to respond. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Admiral Webb studied the tactical display, where the alien vessels hung in space like predators circling wounded prey. He thought of the beacons scattered throughout the galaxy, the warnings left by civilizations that had learned too late what humanity truly was. Send our response, Colonel, he said quietly. Standard diplomatic protocol. Inform them that Earth respectfully declines their generous offer. As Earth's message raced toward the Kethmoran fleet, other signals flashed through quantum-encrypted channels. Across the solar system, weapons that had slept for generations began to wake. The masquerade was ending, and the universe was about to remember why so many civilizations had tried to warn against disturbing the quiet ones of Terra. 1. Ancient beacons had spoken truly. But like so many before them, the Kethmaran had chosen not to listen. The sleeping giant's stir warlord Vexitar's rage manifested as bioluminescent patterns across his war silk, the ceremonial fabric responding to his elevated neurochemical state. The human's response had been maddeningly polite, a simple diplomatic note thanking the Kethmaran Empire for their generous offer, while respectfully declining to surrender their world. "Insolence," he roared, his forearms gesturing wildly. "They dare mock the Empire with their primitive courtesy." Weapons Master Kreldox activated the targeting systems, his scarred features twisted with anticipation. "Shall I demonstrate the consequences of defiance, Warlord? The third moon of their outer planet presents an adequate target for our primary lance. Do it. Let them watch their satellite burn. Perhaps that will teach them proper respect." The Crimson Dominion's main weapon, a plasma lance capable of cracking asteroids, charged with ominous energy. The beam lanced out across space, striking Karen with devastating precision. The small moon didn't simply explode, it vaporized, transforming into an expanding cloud of superheated gas and debris that painted the outer system in ghostly light. On Earth, the destruction registered on every sensor array. In the deep command bunker, Admiral Webb watched the data stream with grim satisfaction rather than horror. "Well," he said quietly, "they've just made the decision for us. No more hiding, no more pretending. Signal all commands, Operation Lazarus is now active." Colonel Ross's fingers danced across her console, sending quantum burst transmissions to installations that officially didn't exist. "All stations acknowledging, Admiral. Deep Fleet is rising." Across the solar system, humanity's true face began to emerge. On Luna, what appeared to be ancient impact craters split open like blooming flowers, revealing construction bays that had been hidden for centuries. From these emerged vessels that defied every known law of physics, ships that seemed to bend light around themselves, their hulls appearing to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Commander Tobias Kane stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, humanity's oldest dreadnought. At 3 kilometers long, it was smaller than the Kethmaran flagship, but its true nature was hidden beneath layers of exotic matter that made it effectively invisible to conventional sensors. Kane was one of the remnant, humans who remembered the old days when their species had been conquerors rather than guardians. "All systems green," reported Lieutenant Emily Cross from her station. "Dimensional drives online, reality anchors stable. We're phase-ready, Commander." Kane nodded, his weathered face bearing scars from wars fought centuries ago. "Signal the fleet. Let's show our guests what real power looks like." 12 human vessels rose from their hiding places. From lunar craters, asteroid belts, and the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres. They were beautiful in their alien geometry, sleek predators that moved through space like hunting sharks. As they approached the Kethmaran fleet, they simply disappeared. Where did they go? Navigator Hexrus frantically worked his controls, scanning across every spectrum. "Sensors show nothing, Warlord. They've vanished completely." Vextar snarled his frustration. "Impossible. Matter cannot simply cease to exist." "Actually," came a new voice across their communication channels. "It can." "Hello, Warlord Vextar. This is Commander Kane of the Terran Defense Force. You've just witnessed phase shift technology. We've moved ourselves slightly out of normal space-time. We can see you, but you can't see us." The Kethmaran weapon systems fired blindly into empty space, their energy beams passing harmlessly through the positions where the human ships should have been. From the phase dimension, the human fleet watched with detached professionalism. "Target their engines," Kane ordered. "Disable, don't destroy. We want prisoners who can spread the word." The human ships shifted back into normal space for mere seconds, long enough to fire weapons that didn't exist in any known physics textbook. Instead of energy or projectiles, they launched concentrated spatial distortions, gravity wells that twisted reality itself. The Kethmaran escort vessels found their engine rooms folded into impossible geometries, their power systems crushed by localized black holes that existed for microseconds before evaporating. Chief linguist Zaranix watched, in horror, as her people's mighty fleet was systematically crippled by an enemy they couldn't even target. "The beacons," she whispered. They were telling the truth. On Earth, Dr. Vincent Hayes monitored the engagement from the Quantum Research Division, hidden beneath the Swiss Alps. As the architect of humanity's dimensional warfare capabilities, he felt a mixture of pride and regret, watching his creations in action. "Phase variance holding steady," reported his assistant, Dr. Rachel Thompson. "The fleet's maintaining perfect coherence across dimensional boundaries." Hayes nodded absently. Humanity had developed these technologies during their expansion phase, when they had been as aggressive as any species in the galaxy. It was only after seeing the devastation they could cause that they had chosen isolation, hiding their capabilities behind a facade of primitive development. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, 11 Kethmaran vessels drifted powerless in space, their crews alive but helpless. Only the flagship retained minimal power, kept operational by human design. Warlord Vextar found himself facing a holographic projection of Commander Kane, whose calm demeanor was more terrifying than any battlefield roar. Behind Kane stood Admiral Webb, his elderly face bearing the weight of terrible knowledge. "Your empire," Kane said conversationally, "has a choice to make. You can accept that Earth is off limits and return to your space with a warning for your people. Or you can escalate this conflict and discover exactly why so many civilizations left those beacons." Vexitar's pride warred with his newly discovered fear. "The Empire will send fleets. Thousands of ships will come for your world." Admiral Webb stepped forward, his voice carrying the authority of absolute certainty. "No, they won't, because you're going to tell them what you've seen here today. You're going to explain that the warnings were real and that humanity is not the primitive species you thought we were." "And if the Empire doesn't listen?" Zaranix asked, speaking for the first time since the battle began. Dr. Hayes appeared on the transmission, his face grave with responsibility. "Then we'll do what we did to the Velkari hegemony 3 centuries ago, what we did to the Zethquan Empire 400 years before that, what we've done to every species that forced our hand." The linguistic implications hit Zaranix like a physical blow. You're the ones who destroyed the civilizations that left the warnings. You were the threat they were warning about?" "Not quite," Webb corrected gently. "We were the response to threats like your empire. When civilizations become too aggressive, too destructive, someone has to stop them. We accepted that responsibility long ago." Captain Lisa Morgan commanded the human vessel Retribution, one of the newer ships equipped with temporal manipulation systems. Her crew was young, born after humanity's withdrawal from galactic affairs but trained in the old ways. At her signal, they demonstrated humanity's ultimate deterrent. Time around the Kethmaran flagship began to slow, not metaphorically, but literally. The passage of seconds stretched into minutes from the aliens' perspective, while the human fleet moved at normal temporal velocity. The demonstration lasted only moments, but the psychological impact was devastating. "We can stop time itself," Morgan explained to the stunned aliens. "We can fold space, manipulate gravity, phase in and out of reality. These aren't weapons. They're tools we developed for exploration and scientific research, but when necessary they can be weaponized." Warlord Vextar finally understood. The beacons hadn't been warning about humanity directly. They had been warning about what happened when humanity was forced to abandon its chosen pacifism. Every civilization that had pressed too hard, that had threatened the peace humanity sought to maintain, had discovered the sleeping giant's true nature. What do you want from us?" he asked, his voice stripped of its former arrogance. "Admiral." Webb's expression softened slightly. "Go home, Warlord. Tell your Emperor what you've seen. Place your own beacons if necessary, warning others to leave Earth alone. We don't want to be conquerors or destroyers, we just want to be left in peace." The Catamaran fleet was released, their ships repaired just enough to reach home. As they departed, human vessels began placing new beacons throughout the surrounding star systems, crystalline constructs that would broadcast warnings in every known language, updated with fresh testimonials about the consequences of disturbing Terra's chosen isolation. Commander Kane stood on his bridge, watching the alien fleet disappear into quantum fold space. Around him, the human vessels began their return to hiding, preparing to resume their long vigil. Think they'll listen this time? Lieutenant Cross asked. Kane considered the question carefully. Some will. Others won't. There are always species who think they're different, stronger, more deserving than those who came before. Dr. Hayes's voice came over the communication system from his underground laboratory. Then we'll be ready for them, just as we've always been. The beacons will warn them, just as they warned the Catamaran. And if they choose not to listen, the sentence hung unfinished in the air, its implications clear to everyone who heard it. Humanity had chosen peace, but they had never forgotten how to wage war. They were gardeners of galactic civilization, pruning back aggressive species when necessary to maintain the greater harmony. As the human fleet disappeared back into their hidden bases and dimensional refuges, the new beacons began their eternal broadcast. The message was simple and direct, translated into thousands of languages. The inhabitants of the Sol system wish only to be left alone. They have withdrawn from galactic affairs by choice, not weakness. Every civilization that has tested this assumption has learned the consequences. We who have witnessed their response leave this warning. Let sleeping giants lie, for when they wake, stars themselves tremble. On Earth, Admiral Webb filed his final report on the Catamaran incident. It would join thousands of others in the Yao archives, testimonies to humanity's reluctant role as the galaxy's ultimate peacekeepers. They had tried retirement, tried isolation, tried to let others police themselves. But the universe, it seemed, would not let them rest. In the depths of space, the ancient beacons and the new ones sang their warnings together, a chorus of caution that had been ignored too many times before. Some civilizations would listen and learn, others would not, and humanity would be waiting, patient and hidden, ready to remind the galaxy once again why the quiet ones of Terra were best left undisturbed.